Namaskaram. I'm a first generation dance practitioner. My name is Sukanya Kumar. I started learning dance at the age of 4 in a setting that could only be described as being the next best thing possible to a Gurukul system. What it helped in is letting dance influence, inspire, and impact everyday activity of mine on a daily basis. My life is centered around dance. While I still have other active interests in academia, science, medicine, literature, language, technology, and all these interests have in turn impacted my artistic choices, my artistic vision, and my journey so far. And although I'm here to share my perspectives with you, I would like to say that they are highly impacted by what I have received, what I have perceived, what I have inferred and deducted from my life and learnings. Whatever I'm sharing with you is my perspective at this point in time and highly depends on where I am today, who I am, my personal experiences and exposure. When I was talking about my interests, I do just as hobby read a lot. I garden, I paint, I listen to music. And these may seem like very simple, everyday hobbies that a lot of us share. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing too special. But I've always been open to the subtleties and the information in them to start a process of questioning my artistic process. Let's take books. If I read about the human anatomy, I start analyzing why certain postures and why certain movements feel a certain way and convey certain meanings. Or if it's a book on mental health and neuroscience, I start analyzing what the impact of movement will be on neurological development. And such influences may seem very normal, and I'm sure a lot of you share that. I have just been more sensitive to acknowledging the sources, although the sources are quite blurred and I don't want to put them in watertight compartments. One such recent influence is my interest in technology, which is what led me to do my most recent master's research in exploring technology and its effects on rasa and rasa theory. When I start exploring with technology, I would like to first congratulate the team of Tide, the Indian dance experience, and my friend Jagyaseni for this wonderful initiative. This is use of technology that we are very empowered with. I would also like to express my gratitude to everything that has made this process of sharing my intimate home space with you and my thoughts with you even possible. And just within my span of life, and mind you, I'm not that old, I have seen everything from landline telephones, the brick-like handheld handsets, the early mobile phones, the annoying dial-up connections on internet. And just 2 decades later, nobody could have even thought that something to this personal level, such emotional connect at a press of a button, would even be possible. Whenever I start thinking of technology, the questions and the concerns of my senior colleagues, my well-wishers, come up. And that is about how to effectively adopt technology and the challenges that we face in facing new technology. To that, all I would like to say is that technology is not something new. It has been there with us since the beginning of time. Ever since we know of early human civilizations, everything from clothing to shelter to tools that we use are technological innovations and discoveries. Without them, human evolution wouldn't have been in the same timeline that we see it in. Let's take just the field of dance, which is stereotypically defined as something that transferred from temples to courts to proscenium stages and then now to digital and social media. This transference, this transition wouldn't be the same without the influence of technology at every stage. Whether it is the Natyashala of the yore, or is it the temple structures, the court settings, all of that is but architectural technology and its influence. It has determined the movement forms, the content, and the deliverance of the dance form itself. What Sadar was then is not what Bharatanatyam is today, although there is a significant similarity. And that change was possible only because of these interventions. I'm not trying to say that one technological innovation or one adopting of technology is better or worse. Definitely not stating whether it impacted dance in a good way or bad. There is no good and bad. All I am saying is that without that progression, without acceptance and assimilation of technology, this progression would look different. Just different. Not good or bad, different. And although we are very receptive to apparent technology, like we will say, oh, the reason dance moved to a proscenium stage is because we could adopt mic systems and amplification and digital lighting. We will also agree that this form of a setting is possible only because of video recording technologies, audio recording technologies, and social media. But I want to bring attention to the fact that although these are apparent technologies, technology since civilization has impacted form and content. To quote an example, whether you drape a sari or you stitch it and stick it, whether you chew on betel leaf to make your lips look red or do you use a stay all day liquid lipstick, whether you have fragrant fresh flowers or are you wearing cloth ones that will never wilt, are you responding to light that is delivered from an oil lamp or are you responding to LEDs? All of these impact the very nature of the dance form at a very subtle level. Response to surroundings, response to environment is a very human nature.
विलास बंधु बंधु रस स्फुरति गंध संतति प्रमोद मान मानसे
Not just that, things that we call as tradition, the nupura, the ghungru that we wear, or the instruments that you use, they are all human inventions, technology to make vibrations into music. And when you look at technology at that level, as being a tool that simply makes human effort easier, or something that enhances aesthetic value, there is no end to what technology can mean. So let's not go there. But why I wanted to bring this up is to have a sensitivity towards that definition that technology is all pervading and has existed since the start of time. And when you are open to receiving it that way, today's technology may seem new and alien. But I'm sure just like we got used to technology of the past, we will get used to this. Just like you got used to your mobile phones. And what is new and foreign and alien today will be assimilated and become one with life tomorrow. I realized for the very first time the importance of technology being a part of the process of creation and not an afterthought when I started working on my first digital technology heavy production titled War by Any Other Name. This production is centered around the topic of refugee crisis and gun violence here in the US. And it implemented video projection in a set that was built specifically for the dance performance in a black box, with music and lighting playing a very integral role in telling the story. And what I realized is that there were moments when technology or the video projection or the music could convey the content so much more effectively than I could. This is not to say that the dance form is insufficient or insignificant. But all it made me realize is that there will be times when other mediums will be as effective or maybe more effective at conveying a subject matter than yours. And that is okay. It is okay to let the strengths of every medium play up. Because after all, they are artistic fields too. And there were moments when I realized that the dance was sufficient. My designer would say, Sukanya, just leave this place be. And that is the kind of relationship that we must share with technology, especially when we are starting to integrate it in an artistic form. For seamless integration, it is important to understand that we try and reshape and reinvent the form to fit different spaces while staying true to the intrinsic characteristics of tradition. It is important that we are not fighting for prominence and rather looking at what is the best means to produce the best possible production at the end of the day. I also realized that with such deep connection with technology, or any other medium for that matter, there has to be a level of sensitivity to allow for future learning. I learnt from multiples of my mistakes in the production what to do and what not to do in the future. There were moments where I felt that there was maybe overcrowding of technology, and there were moments I felt that maybe we could have had more of it. Sections that I would have choreographed differently just to react and respond even more to technology. And the biggest takeaway for me was the audience are not able to perceive the line dividing technology and artistic expression. And that is our power. Anything that is done to perfection is usually invisible. And that's how I like to implement technology in my work. Anything that I wish to say, I want it to be subtle and not on anybody's face. I don't want to scream that I am having a cross-disciplinary collaboration. I just want it to serve the purpose of communication. And that is a learning that I could get only because I had such wonderful collaborators in my production. That is difficult to find. I was lucky. But it is something that we need to seek. We need to seek collaboration with people, with artists in the technological field who are sensitive artistically, and vice versa. We have to be open to accepting the strengths, implementing them to such level of perfection as best as possible, so that it seems seamless to the audience and not like different elements are just being dumped into the same space. When I started my journey with creating YouTube videos and increasing the amount of technology that I started implementing in my productions, and also dealing with certain socio-political issues, there was a lot of research that went through, and it made me realize that the dance community is sort of divided. On one end of the spectrum, we have people who term themselves as being contemporary, who almost exploit technology to the extent of diluting the artistic form. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have people terming themselves as being traditionalists who would rather not use any technology at all, and they frown upon it. And here I am referring specifically to digital media technology. In a way, when I was trying to play my space in that dynamics, a very good friend of mine asked me, "I'm very confused, are you a Puritan or a progressive?" And that made me realize, why should I be one or the other? It is a spectrum, and I don't think that tradition or contemporariness are different. They are but a part of a cyclical process. The way we throw around words like tradition and contemporary is more in relation to the connotation of the word today. But what do they actually mean? In my mind, tradition is like a seed, is like the soil. It nurtures the plant to grow and prosper and bloom. The soil does not smell like the flower. But without the soil and that nurturing, there would be no flower. So we need tradition. We need to be true to the intrinsic characteristics for us to be able to blossom in different spaces. But we also need new blossoms so that they in turn become fruits and seeds and start the cycle again. For I believe that today's culture is tomorrow's tradition. And for that process to seamlessly continue, we need to stop putting ourselves in watertight compartments and rather be open to not being defined. Because essentially, when we start defining ourselves, we are limiting our possibilities. I'm very happy in a way that right now, this era has forced us to be in this leveled playing field where there are people who have been so averse to using digital media and social media who are starting to explore this realm, putting their work out there in whatever way they can. And that input keeps a check on the quality and the authenticity of certain very radical explorations. So in a way, having the ends of the spectrum meet at a middle ground can only mean progress for the field. It means that one helps the other, just like seeds help flowers and flowers become seeds again. It is important for us to explore this possibility, and right now, this age, we have the perfect tools for it. In a lot of my creations, especially for YouTube and very recently some on stage, be it War by Any Other Name or be it my more recent productions like Binaries of Bharatanatyam or Ardhangam, there were sections which were quote unquote not traditional. And as I said, I don't like that definition, but for want of connotational use, I will use it.
Drop of golden sun, me a name I call myself, far a long way to run.
And what I realize is that when I am exploring topics like I did for YouTube, I did a piece on Game of Thrones. I did do a piece on Mother Earth and refugee crisis, and it's a very abstract piece, Remain the Sea. These are pieces that challenge the very vocabulary that we use as dancers. But when I started researching, it was astonishing to find that although we have constantly limited ourselves with the Shastras or the references themselves are not limiting at all. There is scope to use gestures that are very much in the vocabulary of traditional Indian classical dance and makes complete sense in contemporary context too. What I want to convey is that when you go back, really what is tradition? Even Natya Shastra and Abhinaya Darpana were notationary systems of things that were prevalent at that particular period of time. Some may consider it divine and some may not. But it is important to understand that when we start exploring the possibilities, texts don't limit us. They empower us, and with more research and more backing, we will be able to implement them for contemporary issues without diluting the form even a bit. And some Puritans may disagree with my approach, but I personally feel very satisfied that I have researched and that I can back up my conscience.
চিত্তে নীতি নৃত্যে কে যে নাচে তাতা থই থই তাতা থই থই তাতা থই থই মম চিত্তে নীতি নৃত্যে কে যে নাচে তাতা থই থই তাতা থই থই তাতা থই থই তারি সঙ্গে কি মৃদঙ্গে সদা বাজে.
The current situation has caused a lot of anxiety, and I totally empathize with that. No programs, no workshops, no lecture demonstrations, no classes, no income. It is scary, and in such a situation we are left with just two choices. Either we can give in to that anxiety and brood over it, or we use what we have, the tools that we have been provided, which in this case, in isolation from home, is social media, and try and reach out to the world. Try to touch different lives in different ways. And I understand that it is easier said than done, but isn't it better to just accept the reality and do what best we can rather than give in to anxiety? And when I have started exploring the possibilities of social media, I realized that there are options where you can have a steady income out of it. It does take a lot of effort, a lot of dedication, but what doesn't? And when we start as a community to tap into those resources, I'm sure that we will be able to support the artistic platform that we have been provided with. We have the power to reach almost every person at almost every part of the world. And that is great. I understand that it is not great that dance as a profession has never been commercially viable. But what is the reason for that? Anytime such a crisis happens, why is it that funding is always pulled out of the artistic fields first? Is it because we are non-essential? And why are we non-essential? There was a time when artists were an integral part of civilization and evolution. Progress was made possible by artistic endeavors. We had in India rulers who were artists themselves. Take Maharaja Swati Tirunal or Raja Ravi Varma. The patronage that art enjoyed during the period of Rajaraja Chola. Where is it today? In the Western world, we have artists like Leonardo da Vinci, Samuel Morse, who were blurring the lines of what art and science was. And we will definitely agree to it. We will be nodding our heads and saying, yes, there is no difference between what is an artistic field and what is scientific, because an artistic and aesthetic approach in life is as important as a scientific approach in art. We have been exposed to cultures like the Mayan or Greek or the Indian culture, where an artistic and aesthetic approach to life is the way of living. Why is it that we are not catering to that supreme form of entertainment to enlightenment that was mentioned in Natya Shastra? Why is it that we today have such a niche audience that is also dwindling? Why is it that we are unable to communicate beyond the community effectively? Why is it that there is houseful audience in a movie theater while we have to literally strive hard to bring in people to a sabha? And the answer to that is that, have we lost connection with society? Has art stopped being a reflection of society, and has art stopped influencing society at some level? The harsh truth is that we are so commercially driven today. How many of us are responsive to the subtleties and the artistic side of our lives? How many of us, although touched by music and dance and artistic things, how many of us give into it? At a time of crisis, why is it that we still go behind commercially viable fields and forget that art can heal? Have we lost that potential? Or have we lost the opportunity to bring out that potential? After a long time, through digital media, we finally have the chance to impact everyday life. Every one of us scrolls through social media on a daily basis. There is almost nobody who is isolated from social media. It is a medium that is so easily understood among so many different age groups in so many different classes and such different and varied social contexts across countries, across languages. The possibilities are endless. And just in this short span, we have seen people who have created work specifically for digital media platforms, people who have simply posted work that they have done in the past on stage, people who are using this as a collaborative platform, or others who have simply vlogged their experiences, their journey and practices. All this just goes to show the immense scope that social media and digital media technology offers, and how much there is that has remained untapped for so long. Finally, we have the power, and with great power comes great responsibility. And although I have been raving about the positive effects of digital media and social media technology and the immense scope that we have, I would like to throw out a cautionary word. This is the month of mental health awareness, and it is a proven fact that extensive use of social media has a detrimental effect on mental health. We often fall into this trap of comparing ourselves and comparing the making of your film, your behind the scenes struggle, with a very crisp, beautifully edited trailer of others. What we put out there in social media is our best face, our best foot forward. Don't compare, because the likes, the dislikes, the number of comments, the shares, the views do not define the relationship that you have with your art form. For me personally, the artistic journey has been a very inward one. And many a times, although my personal journey is rewarded with public success, many a times it also doesn't. It is never equal or even comparable. What relationship I have with my art form is for me, and if it gets reflected in my work, I can be happy and thankful about it. I am not trying to say that a good comment, a pat on the back is not something that we appreciate. All of us like encouragement, and we should be encouraging others. As they say, if you can't say something nice, it's better you don't say anything at all. I'm not saying we should all hold criticism, but being sensitive and using the art form as a medium to heal, understanding that to each their own, there are multiple perspectives and you may not agree with all of them, is a very healthy way of approaching things on social media. This is not exclusive to social media platforms, but anything like politics, like feedback and comments can be blown up 10 times, 100 times when it's public and when it's on social media. It can have extremely positive effects in bringing up people, making careers, but it can also have detrimental effects. All I want to say is that you should be inspired and influenced by technology and what it allows you to do with your art form. But don't let it infect you. Your expression is for your own self. And if people enjoy it and it touches people's life, it's beautiful. But your intent is to simply respond to this digital space. This is how I have been able to create work in my personal journey, despite feeling sometimes suffocated and flooded with so much that happens in the online space, we often feel pressured to create content. I have been there too. Nobody is immune to it. But it is important to step back and analyze if this is what you really want to do. Just like, do you want to perform in a particular setting? Do you want to share your art in a sabha? Applies to this platform too. Do you want to use digital media? And I would only encourage you to look at the possibilities, not force you to create content. And all I would like to say is that in this process of creation, do not let yourself be defined by the likes, dislikes, or comments, or by a 280 character tweet. You are more than that, and your art is more than that. Explore, reinvent, inspire, touch people's life. Namaskar.